There we go. Now we're all synced up. I just had to redo it. It's gonna look terrible on YouTube, but there we go. All right, take the starting screen off. And there we go. Little Chip said the idea of his survivor perk fade off was that the killer reveals auras in a radius by kicking the generator, etc., etc. And you get the ability to block the gen, making it so ideally the stargazer wouldn't be able to activate his passive. So I was pseudo incorrect when I stated previously that the survivor should be designed to counter the killer. He did have an intention in that part, and I just didn't pick it up on the first pass. um, I'm scrolling too fast. Slow it down. That's the ones with the shots and the marks. Here it is, Beyond the Stars. So the killer's passive, the star's sight. Your screen's completely gray. You don't see scratch marks, but auras are revealed 1.5 seconds longer to you. So when you are in this passive, where you're in like almost the spirit realm, it's essentially, the same thing like the spirit. So relying on the aura reading and all of that from his orbs allows this particular killer to ascertain survivor locations, etc., to boost his power. So it's very important for, well, I don't say it's very important. It is one avenue that you can use that orb and this particular passive using the star sight to locate and down survivors, etc. With this passive, while you're using the star sight, I don't know why I want to keep calling it stargaze, star sight. This said screen's completely gray. You don't see scratch marks, but auras are revealed 1.5 seconds longer. Blood trails are a lot brighter, but can no longer be seen when star sight activates. When hitting a survivor or kicking a gen, you must wait till cooldown refreshes. Generators, grunts, noises of survivors no longer make a sound. Upon kicking a generator, gain the ability to hear generator sounds for 30 seconds. Sounds are going to be louder, enhanced, based on completion, as well as how many survivors are working on the gen. Upon injuring a survivor, hear grunts and breathing for 30 seconds. Breathing is louder by 25%, as well as how many survivors are healing the injured survivor. Cannot be reactivated once started and can only be used after 30 seconds and after a 15-second cooldown. So 30-second use time, 15-second cooldown. Excuse me. Now, that works with the actual ability, which is the Celestial Reach, which is the orb that you shoot out. You shoot out the orb, you hold the button down. As long as you hold the button down, the orb moves. I don't think the speed of the orb was ever mentioned still. If it has been, I didn't forgot. But past that, The orb cannot go through walls. Well, can't be fired through walls and cannot go through walls. It's very important to be stated that it cannot be fired through walls. Because, I mean, you know, you would walk up to the wall, bam, you could fire the orb, and then you could just zone a survivor until you get the hit or down you're looking for. It would be very cheesy and very exploitable if you could shoot it through a wall. Um, it does reveal through walls, which, I mean, it's kind of like a radar type system because it has the pulse sonar and all of that. It does not reveal locations of survivors through lockers, which means it is strictly aura reading and does not use killer instinct. That's another important thing, that it does not use killer instinct. The orb will travel straight through a survivor if you do hit them, so there is no way to, well, I mean, unless you're hurting an add-on or something like that, but that's another story. So if you do fire an orb, you cannot just shoot the orb and leave it sitting at the edge of one thing and know when a survivor runs through it. Which is interesting in my opinion, because you have to rely on the sonar and the proximity and all of that, which is 4.3 meters, instead of just placing it somewhere and then getting alerted when a survivor runs through it. So this is a clearly distinct in separation from HAG and things like that. It uses strictly sonar instead of just a triggerable trap or anything like that. So there's a very big noticeable difference as well. Yep, there it is. It popped back in. Travels at 5 meters per second, can be used while moving as well. There you go. I had just forgot. But there you go. 5 meters per second can be used while moving. And can be fired with no delay. Another important note to have in this particular concept is you can fire one, get the information that you need to get, fire another one, all of that. I assume that the cooldown of 35 seconds stays even if you fire an orb and then fire another orb in a different location. Based on what this says, and I'm pretty sure it's kind of self-explanatory, you do have to wait the 35 seconds before the sonar can be used. So it's not orb dependent, it's time dependent and cooldown dependent. There was something I was gonna say. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. I remember most of these add-ons that I looked at and everything like that, but one thing I was wondering is if the add-ons not already here, because I know I didn't go over all of them. An add-on I think that would be interesting for this particular situation is to do the reverse of everything. It is kind of like everything as it's listed here, especially for the sonar and the passives of the killer. The exact opposite. I mean, obviously you don't want it to be negative, breathing, hearing, and things like that, but I mean, basically the opposite. The orb, for example, can be shot through walls, can actually locate survivors and all that without the sonar and all of that. You know, like if they walk through it or walk by it, it uses killer instinct instead of regular, and just really, you know, amp that up significantly. I think that would be an interesting iridescent. Because I mean, hitting a survivor directly with the celestial reach is aight. But what if you just completely just amped it and made the iridescent, you know, just super like, yeah, like worthy of an iridescent? Hmm. I mean, it's not bad on the noise enhancement and things like that, but when you talk about noise enhancement, people that use headphones have all the noise enhancement they need. This is really just to enhance the console experience or anybody that's playing on TV or anything like that. But headphones users don't really need noise enhancement. So you're really the only thing you're getting out of this, if you're not, or if you're using headphones, is hitting a survivor directly with the celestial reach injures them. Which it does travel 1 meter per second faster than a survivor. So I mean, that's a thing too. Also, just for slight clarification, is this actually hitting a survivor, like you launching the orb, or while you're controlling it and moving it? Or is it any time that the survivor comes in contact with the orb, they take damage? Because I think that may need clarification, because it does say hitting a survivor directly, which in terms that you have to be using the orb actively to cause that damage, not just sitting it somewhere and a survivor running through it and taking damage. So that's possibly a clarification that needs to be made in this case. Because I just assume, because it says hitting a survivor directly, it has to be when the killer's either launching the orb or controlling the orb. But I could be wrong there. If I am wrong there, clarification might need to be there. I mean, if that's how it's supposed to be designed, then I'd say it's worded properly. But if it's not, then, you know, just put a little something down there. Or just change the wording if they touch it or come in contact with it versus hitting them. I think it's just when the killer's in control or when the orb's being launched, though. But like the pieces of black holes and things like that, instead of having a pulse that scans survivors, maybe reverse it and have a pulse that like pulls survivors or slows them down or something like that, and then gives them, you know, a killer instinct or something, you know. I don't know, just something, you know. Obviously, take more thought than I'm giving, because I'm literally, like always, just spitballing. But I think a second iridescent would be even a third iridescent. Nobody said you had to stop at just two. You could have three iridescent, or you can knock one down to a purple or something like that. You can have as many add-ons as you want, you know. You don't necessarily have to stay to Dead by Daylight's, you know, add-on, you know, limits and things like that. Because one thing I have noticed when it comes to Dead by Daylight is once you get higher up there in the levels, you end up having, you know, 400, 500, even around 1,000 of every add-on. So it's not like, oh, it's flooded. You're flooding add-ons, and you know, these aren't ever gonna be used in anything like that. It's like, you know, when you play the game a lot and you main a particular killer, you're going to eventually get a surplus of every add-on. So having more iridescent add-ons or purple add-ons or anything like that that are fun for the player to play, as opposed to having something that's like, oh, well, you get a 5% increase in this on a brown add-on. It's kind of like, you know, yeah, I understand brown add-ons need to be used, but it's like, do they? Do they actually though? Do you really need like four or five, well, four like different brown add-ons when you can just yank one of those or add another yellow add-on instead, you know, and get past all the BS like Ghostface? You had a 5%, crouching increase speed. I'm like, really? Really? What a waste. But back to the topic. Yeah. So this is what I was talking about. Upon kicking the generator, gain the ability to hear generator sounds for 30 seconds. Sound is louder, enhanced. The grunts of pain. Well, basically, from all of this that I read, from upon kicking the generator all the way down to here. All of this is activated upon kicking the generator. I just double read this just to make sure. I didn't think it was this one. I mean, it does work after kicking a gen, but you can activate blood trails by hitting a survivor. So that's why I didn't include that. And that's just the description. So yeah, anything from there can be blocked by the survivor perk Fade Off, which whenever you are revealed while working on a gen, gain the ability to block it for 25 seconds. I would still change that particular perk into something else. Because I mean, still blocking a particular generator prohibits you from, because I mean, I would personally just run it at a level 1, because by the time I get my aura revealed and I am forced off the generator, I'm going to be in chase. And, the killer's going to be running after me, and I'm probably going to be running away from the generator or running a loop and trying to escape. So it doesn't necessarily need 25 seconds, but I would stay with the old pattern, like 16 seconds, like, Ghostface's perks and everything like that that blocks off generators. 16 seconds seems to be a behavior favorite. But blocking a generator has its good and its bad. Yes, I understand that this perk is made to counter the killer, but you gotta think about the trolls, man. If a survivor hates your team or just feels like he wants to troll somebody, and he gets you guys into, let's say, a 3 gen situation, or he just feels like being a dick in general, he can take this perk, he can walk over to a generator, have the killer follow him, and as soon as he gets to the generator and gets his aura revealed, bam, he can block that generator. There is no cooldown or anything like that as well, is another issue. So one survivor could perpetually keep a 3 gen situation if the generators are within 25 seconds of each other, obviously. The gen loop, I should say, is within 25 seconds of each other. Could run with the killer and efficiently keep the game soft lock the entire time. Just by having the killer follow them down the line with an orb, walk to 1 gen, lock it. 2nd gen, lock it. 3rd gen, lock it. Run back to the 1st gen, lock it. 2nd gen, lock it. 3rd gen, lock it. So there's the potential for trolling. Now, locking a generator isn't necessarily a bad thing, because this also is a sort of half counter to like ruin or pop or any of the other perks that decrease generator progress. Most importantly, ruin at this case, or pop. Survivor gets hooked. They have barbecue and chili and pop or something like that. They run over to try to use it. You can block the generator to keep the killer from regressing it. Or if you're working on it and you get your aura revealed and the killer forces you off a generator, you can lock that generator's progress and you can run away. However, locking a generator also comes with its problems. If you lock a generator and the killer just straight up walks away from you and goes after another survivor, you're stuck sitting there for 25 seconds. Or the killer knows that, hey, he has 25 seconds in which he can take his sweet time going after a buddy or chasing you around or doing whatever needs to be done in that particular time. Also, there's one thing that I just thought of regarding that particular situation and the troll and all of that. Um, Distance on that particular orb. Does that orb just exist perpetually wherever you leave it until it's resummoned or anything like that? Like if I shoot it at Kill Shack, for example, on one side of the map, can I walk all the way to the other side of the map, chase survivors, do whatever needs to be done? And that orb never despawn based off distance from me or, anything like that, or just sitting, best despawn based off time? Does it despawn based off sitting there? Or does it just stay there forever? Because that is another thing that I didn't even think of till now. I don't think it says anywhere here. Yeah, it just says can be refired with no delay, but only can have one out at a time. Because that is very important. Because using that, you can literally just sit in the orb on one generator or in a place that, survivors are going to run around. And anytime your sonar gets ready, you can literally just, bam, sonar it. So every once in a while, you can check the sonar and see if survivors are at a generator, things like that. And I assume you have an add-on that decreases sonar. 0.3, 0.4, 0.6, 0.5. That's a nasty mangling. um, can you even get the mangled status effect without being injured? I don't know if you can, because I'm pretty sure you can only get it mangled when you're injured, and then once you're healed up, it goes away. So I don't think you can actually get the mangled status effect being at full health. I could be wrong, but I think that might be how that is. um, there we go. 8 seconds there. That's survivor perks. So you got an 8 second decrease in there, plus the iridescent perk to actually make the orb cause damage. So if you play your card right, well, I guess that's another thing that I should ask about is actually controlling said orb. So you sit orb down and you press button to move orb forward. If you get in front of the orb, does it still continue to move in that forward direction? Always? Or does it move, in the direction you're looking at the orb? I'd say it moves in a forward direction always, but that's another thing I never thought of. If you sit the orb down on one side of the generator at a distance and you sonar and you pick up a survivor at the generator, you can literally push the orb through from one side to the other side. And if any survivors are on any of the sides of the generator, that is free damage. I guess there's little text that you can actually do. I mean, it only works once because once it's pushed through, you have to reset it. But if we're talking 3-gen situation or like a middle gen where you have to stay vigilant on it or they'll get it, or a very important gen that you don't want to lose, there's actually pretty good text you can use there. What is the radius of the orb? Because I've just been picturing an orb in my head. Like a moderate size, like orb, like it being Dead by Daylight size. But those are perks. What is the radius of said orb? Because it says the waves of energy go out 4.3 meter radius. Yeah, I'm not crazy. The orb radius was never mentioned. At least I'm not seeing it as of now. Maybe the first time I went through it, I seen it, and that's why I'm picturing an orb, or maybe I'm just using my imagination. I don't know. I'm partially sick, and I am kind of off today because of it. But yeah, I can't find it. If you do run back through this and see it, little chip, then please comment on the video or something, the radius of the orb, because I just ain't finding it right now. I'm too sick to be going through everything. I feel myself like going into a haze as I'm doing this and trying to go over things. But I figured I haven't done anything yesterday, so I'd hop on today. But man, I am in a funk. All in all, though, very good concept. Everything's not bad. This perk still kind of makes me like there has to be a better way to block the killer from being able to access that generator without changing a core mechanic of the game or anything like that, and make it unique. And then, like I said yesterday, perk 2, there's already a perk that lets you resist the urge to scream. And then, whatever I said about perk 1, because I don't even remember. Oh, yeah, Medal of Man. That's what I said. Medal of Man. Your protection hits, 3 protection hits activates Medal of Man, and it does the same thing. So there is a perk that exists that actually does that as well. And it's a lot harder to activate because it's protection. Well, I guess it's not hard to activate because you can use zombies. If it's a nemesis, you can use the trapper's traps. If you're going up against one of those, you can jump in front of a huntress's hatchet to get a protection hit there. And there's lots of other different ways where you can cheese a protection hit. So it's actually not hard to activate Metal of Man if you get a correct killer that you can cheese their equipment. But you could probably redo this and make it a little bit more unique and change it up and probably get a similar effect to that. Oh man, I am feeling it. Perk idea, future sight. Isn't that like clairvoyance? You can perceive the living and dead amongst you. When the trial starts, you see the auras of the killer and other survivors for 15 seconds. Isn't Nemesis's perk like only like 8 or 10 seconds? Or something like that? This can be activated once per trial. I mean, it says when the trial starts. You don't need to put when the trial starts, and then this can be activated once per trial in the same line. It's like Corrupt Intervention and Lethal Pursuer, I think is Nemesis perk. When the trial starts, you see the auras of all of them, and then poof. A random survivor's aura will be revealed to you for 5 seconds for every 30 seconds. So you took Lethal Pursuer and an Object of Obsession, and you reversed them to make them survivor perks. No. Absolutely not. One, you don't need to see where the killer is at the start of the match, because, well, that kind of defeats the purpose. If it's a stealth killer, the stealth killer should be, well, able to be stealthy. Plus, most killers have a caveat or something that allows you to know who they are. If the match starts and nobody immediately gets into a chase, you could probably assume that it's going to be a stealth killer, Michael Myers or Ghostface or possibly Pig on the rare occasions as your killer. If you get a bar or anything else that's indicative to the killer, or see traps on the ground or anything like that, or the lullabies, or, any of the UIs or HUD displays, you can identify the killers very quickly on who you're going up against. If you are spawned at a generator that's on the far side of the map, like the farthest outreaches of the map, the killer is generally spawned either in the middle of the map or at one of the farther gens. Vice versa, when you're a killer, the survivor is generally a guaranteed survivor spawn at the farthest gen from you when you spawn in. I mean, once you learn the spawns and things like that of Dead by Daylight, you really don't need to worry about it. And like I said, if it's a stealth killer, let stealth killers be stealth. And if it's a regular killer, you'll hear the terror radius, lullaby, whatever the heck they got going on before they even approach you. 15 seconds is outrageous. You'd only need about 5 seconds of aura reading. That's enough time to let you know which direction the killer's going in and whether or not you need to GTFO. But I mean, it's not necessary. The random survivor aura being revealed to you for 5 seconds, why not just run the ring and you can see the aura of of the obsession the entire match. Period. Why just have random survivors' auras popping up every 30 seconds? That is annoying and that is not helpful. You have empathy, if you want whereabouts of the killer, which does both of these, by the way. It's not at the start, but whenever somebody gets hit, you'll see exactly where that survivor is. You'll see where the killer is that is chasing them. And you'll always see that survivor until they get healed. Or somehow get out of range, which I don't think that's possible, really. Unless it's a very, very big map. So, unfortunately, and I mean, I wasn't really expecting much from Ryan the NCR. I think that's the real one, though. No, that's not the real one. I'm pretty sure that's the fake one. Yeah, that's the fake one. I don't know. It could be a second account. There's two of these Ryan the NCR accounts. This one has 40 posts, so I'm assuming this is the fake one or his alternative account. The alternative account, or whichever one it is just a scumbag account. All he does is steal people's ideas, and he posts ideas of perks that already exist. This is what he does. He combines perks together. He posts other people's ideas from their posts and tries to say that they're his. Things like that. Every time I've clicked on this guy's post, I've been severely disappointed. Perk idea, boon, sound of silence. It's probably shadow step. Or something like that. Oh, no. It's even worse. We have Iron Will. We have, what is it, Nature's Calling. We have Quick and Quiet. And we have something that reduces audio range. All in one perk. And people are actually saying super cool idea. Why not just give survivors 5 perks for wandering into their safe zone? Exactly. That's exactly what's happening. It's definitely OP, but the concept is cool. It's not. It's not, though. This is Abomination. He literally just put 4 different perks. No, 5 different perks. Like that guy said. And jammed it into one boon totem. That's not how behavior designs their boon totems. They generally just pull one and then change things. It's not a good boon. You essentially are saying, step into this, and killer basically can't find you. You're not going to scream. You're not going to have any type of grunts of pain. Your breathing's going to be quiet. You're not going to make any noise notifications ever. If you run this particular perk with Shadow Step, uh, what is it? Is it Vigil? The one that prevents you from having your aura red? And then another perk you could probably make, like, mainly, no, you don't even need Urban Evasion because you don't make any noise notifications or anything. You'd have a complete stealth build. Somebody playing like a spirit or something like that would just be out of luck because they're not going to find you inside of that boon. Not a good thing. Not a good concept. It's not a good anything. And that person actually voted that up. What is wrong? Well, you only got 24 posts, so you probably don't play the game that often. What is wrong with you? Perk idea, base swing. This is also what's very annoying to me, by the way, is the fact that this person, perk idea, perk idea, perk idea, perk idea, perk idea, perk idea. Combine all of your perks into one post. Nah, I ain't even gonna say anything to him. I'm not gonna go over all of these. I already know They're all going to be the same. They're all going to be bad. Just from the first two examples that I clicked on. First two ones that popped up. Like I said, this guy has a habit of just stealing things from the game and jamming them together or stealing other people's perks. One day he's going to try to come out with something original, and guess what? Nobody's going to really be interested because you're just your reps, just going down the toilet. There it is. Another one. Another one. Another one. Another one. It's like, brother, combine these all into one post. All of these were made February 19th. Take all your perk ideas, one post, label them. I don't know why a moderator isn't coming in and either forcing him to put all of these together or getting rid of all of these consecutive posts. It's annoying to see. This is why I got a page behind, is because this guy just posting. Not even good content. The Grudge. The Ring just came out, and we're talking about The Grudge. That's from 2019. So somebody actually dug this back up. And I'm pretty sure I said this the other day, too. Somebody just dug this back up. The Animated Killer. Is this an actual concept or just an animation? No, I do not click on Google Docs. Actually, let me go through this way. Sorry, friend, if you can't post it on the actual creation forum, I'm not looking at it. Going through, especially the Google Docs, it's the easiest way to send everything through an IP puller and get people's actual IP addresses, etc., etc. It's also the easiest way to download a virus into somebody's computer. Don't click on Google Doc links and things like that, even if they are legit, because sometimes they're not. Or it's a legit link that's hooked to something else, like an IP puller. You'll have no idea your IP is being pulled. Next thing you know, your computer speeds or your computer's running a little slower than it usually does. Or if you have a beast of a computer, you won't even notice. And somebody's, Bitcoin mining off of your computer or using your computer as a node to hack into other people or doing all kinds of other nefarious things that you're never going to be aware of for a long, long time. Let's see. It Insidious Chapter. This is a complete draft. Draft and complete chapter. Complete chapter. Two different things. Two completely different things. I even found quotes from the movies for each of the 12 perks plus ability and offering. Problem you're gonna have with that, since you did pull this from a movie, if you remember the whole Pinhead idea and his voice lines and all of that behavior, running into that problem and having to put new voice lines and everything else, the whole Pinhead debacle, you're probably gonna have the same issue with your Insidious chapter. So all of these quotes and all of this other things that you have listed are probably going to have to be redone, unfortunately. Plus, it's another contract that behavior's going to have to pay to get. So, I've never seen Insidious. I don't know if it's a popular movie, game, whatever it is. If I have seen it, I don't remember it. But, no idea. Take your time to read through this. May have exaggerated a bit. Unfortunately, I cannot, especially because you're putting PS and then PPS and everything else instead of putting all of the extra stuff towards the holy shit, my dude. There ain't no way I'm gonna take my time reading through all of this. My lord. Killer, the demon. This is literally just a description. This is not an overview. Tear radius 32 4.6. Ability demonic violence. The demon draws its power from the Entitus? 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 I don't know. To kill survivors and drag their souls into the chaos of the farther. See, why do people do that? Like, I'm generally asking. They say ability, and then they give a description of the ability, but they don't say what the ability is. Only thing you gave me here was ability, demonic violence, and a description. And then you go into dark presence, soul, tormentor, lost soul. If all of these are sub powers or abilities of this, then under this, you might want to put your little description and then put that these, everything that's part of that is part of this in the description. Don't just say ability, demonic violence, and then that. Because in this case, you can just erase all of that completely. Just get rid of it from the concept and just start with ability, dark presence, soul tormentor, lost soul, astral monitoring, etc., etc., or whatever else you have. Don't do that. This is just filler. This is why your thing is so long. They the PPSs and all of this other stuff that doesn't necessarily have to be read and isn't really important to everything should be put towards the end. The behavior, if you don't do the chapter, you can still use the talents and all of that. All of this can be put at the end. If you label and move everything in a particular order to where it's fluid and easy to be read, again, cut the chaff. Cut some of these things down to make it shorter, etc., etc. Because you don't want to tell the movie within the description of the killer. You just want to give background on the killer. Yeah, all of this could have probably been cut down to about half the size if you actually formatted and did everything correctly. But, when you're working with a big project and you don't have a lot of experience doing big things like that, people do tend to just throw things in wherever they fit and forget to go back in, look at their own concept, and rearrange everything. And then, like I always say, cut the chaff or cut the chaff and condense it. The things that you don't necessarily need, put somewhere else or at the very bottom in its own section. Shorten the article, make it about half of that, and then all the extra information that you want to include after. So anybody that wants to look at this particular concept can read what they want to read, and then if they want to go farther and they're really interested, they can continue to read on. This is not good formatting. So we go through all of this different stuff. Get rid of the ability demonic violence because there's nothing there afterwards. So just delete that. Dark presence. The demon always switches back and forth between two realms for other survivors. 20 seconds in the real world, 5 seconds gone, except the hunt where he is always visible. You definitely need to explain this better. I mean, I think I understand what you're saying, but that is a terrible explanation. Your writing's bad. You're going to confuse somebody. Soul Tormentor. When the demon has placed the survivor in death status, dying state. Again, talent is perks. Dying state, not death status. I understand you're coming from another game and you're using the terminologies from that game, but if you're going to design something for behavior for Dead by Daylight, you should use the terminology of the game. One, it shows that you actually play the game and you have a general interest and that you've done research and things like that. Because, I mean, if both of us were giving a speech and I was doing a speech about candy and you were doing a speech about, I don't know, cupcakes, if you called your cupcakes pancakes and all kinds of other different terminologies that weren't correct, people are going to not believe what you're saying. They're not going to think you know what you're talking about. They're not going to think you're doing a good job. Versus if I stay, accurate and I use the specific terminology to something. Like if I'm working on a car and I say the word alternator, people are going to know that, hey, I know what I'm talking about instead of, that thing on your car that maintains the charge of your battery while you're driving, you know, different. Or charge box, your charge box on your car, it charges your battery, it runs your car's accessories and everything, it's different. People that know what they're talking about use the particular terminology. All of these, despite your particular thing, like what we have here is you spent so much time looking up, like you said, quotes and everything else about the movie that you've put nothing into this concept. Don't make sense, don't make sense, not explained correctly, etc., etc., etc. You put too much time into the movie, game, whatever this is, and you're not enough into your actual concept. We got death timer, things like that. Astral monitoring, demon is always visible in the further. The demon can press the strength button to Alright, I'm done here. I don't need to go over this. If you're not going to take the time to actually tailor this to this particular form, why am I going to go over it? We're running about an hour. I could leave it at an hour today. So anybody that's watching that's clicked on this particular post and we're like, oh man, this is, pretty good, man, maybe I'll pull something from this or anything like this, or maybe I'll follow this format. Don't. It's a very bad format. Again, talent. Not a talent. You're in the wrong game, son. This is Dead by Daylight. Perks. And I know some people are going to be like, hey, Q, you're harping over something that's minor. It's not a minor thing. It's not. Trust me. If you're trying to present your idea to a professional business or anybody in that matter, and you're not saying what you mean, like straight up, and you're expecting them to know exactly what you're talking about, you're crazy. If the first thing you say before you have even said anything about your chapter and you go on a small rant about all of this stuff right here, you're already losing your audience's attention and ain't gonna start. Like by the time you get to through about half of this, they're gonna stop you and say, please begin. We only have, X amount of time to get reviews done. We ain't got all day to look at just one review. They're going to say, please begin. They're going to cut you off. They're going to say, please begin. You don't say behavior. If you don't do the chapter, you can still use the talents. I think these are good ideas. You don't boost yourself like that. It's going to be behavior to determine whether or not these perks are good ideas. You also don't try to throw your own self a line and say, hey, if you guys don't make the challenge or don't make the concept for the chapter, use the perks. No, don't do that. Take your time to read through this. Do not tell another human being to take their time or anything of that matter like that. May have exaggerated a bit. So what you're saying is there's going to be exaggerations, there's going to be possibly false details, etc., as part of this. So everything may not be completely true. It might not be completely accurate. You're already discounting yourself. I even found quotes from the movie, so I guess it is a movie, for each of the 12 perks plus ability and offering. So all the quotes that they see, they now know is from a movie, and if they run into the whole pinhead thing, which I guarantee they never want to deal with again, every quote that is part of this is going to have to be deleted. So, as of now, you either have the option of going back in and changing the quotes up some, making them similar but not the same, or all the quotes that are listed and all the other, stuff that comes directly from the movie will have to be deleted out. Behavior will do it or you can do it. Doesn't matter. Then, why are you saying what your original idea was? Here. My original idea was Specs and Tucker as two technical survivors, but we already had something like that in the Resident Evil chapter. It's like, why? 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 Then at the end, you said you could give Specs an outfit for Adam from the first Saw movie. Why? Why are you trying to tell the company that makes this how to do their jobs and what to do? Why do this? PPS, I've written this originally in German and way before the update that changed the slightly the script to actual percentages. So the add-ons are still written with the old system. And now for the last PPS, which is probably going to disqualify this, is that this already existed before. You started working on this way before, so this has been a concept that's taking a lot of time for them to complete. They've taken so much time that an update has come that changed or everything from the descriptions to the actual percentages. But you recognize this, but instead of going back in and changing and updating this, you just left it how it was, which in the end shows that you're lazy. So you're bossy, you're lazy. Some things in this might be false and not even true. You don't take the time to learn the game. You use the wrong terminology. Everything that you have is out of order. This is a complete draft, even though it says it's the complete Insidious chapter. A draft and a complete chapter is two different things. Despite, everything else not being completely read out like it's supposed to be. This right here literally just says that, and then that's the end of it, and it goes into other things. Some of these things don't even have, proper descriptions to them to say what they do. And some of the things that do aren't really listed properly. I understand that it was written in another language and all of that, and it had to be translated, and things like that don't translate great. However, you can't translate something that wasn't written there in the first place. So, despite this being, super long, it's one of those things to where you need to go back in and you need to update everything to make it current. Trust me, if you've ever been on the other side of game creation and things like that, things change all the time. They have to update too. They have to stay current too. Things that they've done, they have to go back in and change, like having, the words, like you said at the top with the PPS. Here, you read this in Germany before the update changed from the description to the actual percentages. You just need to change everything that is in this particular small file into percentages instead of words. Behavior went and adjusted their entire game from words to percentages. And you couldn't even do just this base script. But was it too long for you to go back in and redo it? Because guess what? If it's too long for you to change it, behavior ain't going to want to go through and change it. I'm not going to want to go through and change it or read it or anything like that. Nobody's going to want to go through and read it and go through and all of that. If it's too long for you to edit, it's too long for somebody to read. You know what I'm saying? As you're thinking of the things that bums you out about things, you can't incorporate them into your own project. But long story short, I'm not going to be doing a full review on this particular concept. I was going to go down and look at the perks and all of that, but I mean, this person just puts off a sort of like, not really narcissistic, but sort of narcissistic vibe. It's not like as high as narcissistic, but it's like a tier of it vibe that they put out. Like, I know my work is good, even if you don't make it into a chapter. I'll still let you use parts and pieces of it. Feel free to. I know it's still good though. Type shit. Then when you mix in the inherent, or at least implied laziness, that they literally say that they're not going to update their work or anything like that, it's kind of like, bro, like you're not going to take the time to update it and make it usable, readable, put it in the correct order, and, continue to work and flush it out. Why should I do a review on it? It's how I see it fit. I would rather get, something stupid, like one of his posts, for example, that makes no sense at all, generally useless and things like that, but they're short. I can look at this, I can say, this ain't good, and then I can move on, rather than having a huge page of things and end up coming to the same conclusion that I come through with this. This will be the last thing I do. You have good athletic strength as you can weaken your opponent's strength. You pull pallets and exit lockers 40% faster. How the hell does that correlate together? I don't know what dazed popped up. Is this edit? Ah, it was edited. Gotcha. Pulling pallets 40% faster. Pallets are already fast. You don't need to pull them any faster. As a matter of fact, if you do pull pallets faster, you're not going to actually be able to get pallet stuns because the animation's going to happen before the killer can even get close to that. Especially with latency and all kinds of other problems. So you're probably never going to get a pallet stun pulling your pallets faster. And then exiting lockers 40% faster. Why? You already enter and exit lockers more than fast enough. Why would you want to exit them faster? It is a useless perk that does nothing for you gameplay wise. Why would I pull this instead of Dead Hard or any of the other meta perks? Like, why would I add that to my build? What is Dazed? Dazed will cause the killer to be unable to use their abilities and powers for a short time. Dazed does not affect killer perks. That's literally game-breakingly overpowered. Absolutely no. That ability at all is dumb, let alone 20 seconds. Days because wait, so before he edited this, he had a 20-second days that allowed the killer to not be able to use their abilities or powers for 20 seconds. And he just included a random days effect that apparently he never mentioned or worded or whatever. I wish this person would have quoted them on what that was so I could read whatever this dazed was in its implementation. But if it's what I think it is, this was probably going to end up being a head on that had a daze effect added to it. As well, that's kind of what this guy does. Well, preventing a killer from activating their powers and all of that isn't too big of a deal. It's the same as essentially being stunned. Now, 20 seconds is a little bit high for, getting like a head on or something like that. Definitely way high in the time and doesn't need to be that high. But I will say that is something unique. I've seen it on the opposite side where the killer's disabling survivors, perks, and things like that. I mean, it's called the exhausted status effect. Obviously, things like that that you can apply. But there's not anything that disables the killer's powers. So, having a particular ability to either prevent a killer from using their powers, perks, etc., or being able to force cooldowns on a particular killer abilities or something like that is actually unique and can actually be pushed. It can be pushed. So, despite him being the person and the way that he is, he actually had a good idea and it made it worthwhile to check out this last perk. Um, this is not game breakingly overpowered. The 20 seconds, I mean, is an issue, but it's not game breakingly overpowered. If you can hinder a survivor, I don't see the problem of getting rid of the ability of a killer to do anything for, a little bit of time. I'm not going to list a second range because that's going to be, PTB. But I mean, if you're going up against a Leatherface or something like that, and you're at the end of your rope and you manage to pull out a feat that will disable him from using his chainsaw, that'll at least protect you from going down for a little bit longer. I mean, you're still going to get moused one. That's what makes this not overpower. The daze just stops abilities and powers. It never stops just a basic mouse one attack. They can still catch you, and they can still clap them cheeks. However, it'll just prevent them from using their power for a couple of seconds. So I don't agree with what you're saying 100%. Yes, 20 seconds is ridiculous, but it's not game breakingly overpowered. So good job. Fake Ryan the NCR. You did something right. Or at least you incorporated something that would make a very good and interesting thing towards a particular survivor. I'm about an hour and 14 minutes in. I'm actually gonna end stream here. My nose is starting to run and all that. So thank you for anybody stopping by. As always, supplement your lifestyle. I definitely am. I need like medicine or rest or something. Ooh. Oh boy. And I will see you next time. Peace.